Hey everybody, Kerry Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and I'm gonna talk to you today about tourniquet application. Firstly, you gotta have all the proper gear. And I've got a lot of gear right here. Some of our top 5 we always talk about, the gloves, the tourniquets, hemostatic agents, pressure bandages, and chest seals. It goes along with our tourniquet the limbs, pack the junction, seal the box. The whole little training thing we do to keep things simple in a stressful situation. Unfortunately, medical is one of the most under-prioritized and overlooked pieces of the whole pie when it comes to training. And you need to have that to be a complete individual, to be an asset rather than a liability when it comes down to the time choosing you. So we're going to talk about a quick tourniquet application. There's a couple of tourniquets that we utilize in our training classes, one of them being the CAT Gen 7, and then there is the latest and greatest from Tactical Medical Solutions. This is now called the SOF-T instead of the SOF-TY. It's a Special Operations Forces tourniquet, and they have changed this up quite a bit to make it much easier to apply single-handed and to prevent any of the buckle slippage or anything like that. And so they've really improved this drastically over the last several generations. So if you've got to put a tourniquet on, people have always said, well, what if they lose that limb? Well, dude, if you got to put a tourniquet on, you got much bigger issues to worry about. So get the tourniquet on, because tourniquets do what they're designed to do, especially these newest generations, and that's keep blood in the body where it belongs. Science, right? So the more blood you have in the body, the better your outcome is for survivability. So how do you do that? Well, cool. I'm glad you asked, because I'm gonna tell you, there's 2 different ways you can put a tourniquet on. One is military haircut, high and tight. Right out of TCCC, Care Under Fire standards. High and tight is basically whenever the situation does not allow me to identify the bleed, or I can't visibly identify the bleed, I'm gonna place that as high as possible on that extremity. Other one, and I'll demo both of these. Other one is called a deliberate application, and that's when I can see where the blood is actually coming from that extremity. And remember, I say extremity, I've said that a couple of times, because tourniquets only go on 4 places in your body. Here, 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 and here. This is not a 5th application point, so don't put a tourniquet on the neck unless you really don't like them. So we're not going to get into that. However, high and tight. With a tourniquet, first thing you got to do, identify the bleed. Let's say a high tight application. This, I've got a long sleeve shirt on, it's soaked in blood. I'm gonna get this tourniquet up here as high as I can. First thing I'm gonna do, get all the slack out. That's the most important part of a tourniquet application, is getting the slack out, okay? Get all the slack out. I'm gonna wrap this tourniquet, the strap around here, the hook and loop, and I'm gonna start turning this thing here. This is called my windlass. This is my spigot. It turns things on, turns things off. I'm trying to turn things off because I'm bleeding. So I'm gonna tighten this thing down until I can get this all the way tight. I'm not gaming this. And then this excess tail, I'm gonna bring it around just to secure over it so it doesn't flop around. And then this windlass retention strap, I'm gonna bring over. Now you notice that says time, okay? That says time on there. That's important for me to note the time of application for EMS personnel, hospital personnel, to know how long the tourniquet's been on. So I annotate the time. At this point, and this really hurts, at this point the bleeding should be stopped. This is what we call a clue. Okay, so your bleeding is going to be all 100% stopped at that point. I'm taking this thing off because it's about to kill me right now. But a tourniquet is going to be painful. Okay, so if you have a casualty that you're putting a tourniquet on, make sure you get it on tight enough to stop the bleeding, but also watch their hands, because if they have an altered mental status from blood loss, they could go after that tourniquet and try to get that tourniquet off of their arm, leg, whatever it's on, to alleviate that pain. Also, that brings up another important point, is getting the tourniquet on tight enough to stop all of the bleeding. Tourniquet studies that were done, a lot of guys didn't put tourniquets on their buddies tight enough. Like 78% of the tourniquets in one of these studies done they were too loose. That's ineffective, and that's going to cause more problems than good. So get that tourniquet on. The reason they didn't put the tourniquet on tight enough, they didn't want to hurt their buddies. And I get that, but put the tourniquet on tight. Now, what if you got a dude, well, that was a hasty application. What if you got some dude with big thighs down here, and he's got the big, I lift things up and put them down legs, and you need to, and one tourniquet does not do it. This is an 1.5-inch band, an 1.5-inch wide band. Tourniquets don't just act on compressive force, they act on the amount of surface area that's being compressed as well. So if one tourniquet doesn't do it, and I've got that sucker tightened down as tight as I can, guess what? Grab a second tourniquet, place it immediately adjacent to that other tourniquet and apply it, whether above it or below it, wherever you got the room, and get that second tourniquet on. And what you've done is you've effectively doubled the surface area, so you have to have hopefully less compressive force to get that bleeding stopped, which is our ultimate goal here. Now, That was a hasty application, deliberate application. Let's say I have a wound to my lower leg. Let's say I'm out camping and I catch a hatchet and it goes into my lower leg. Well, that's awesome. Well, it's not awesome, but let's say it's right here in my lower leg. I can see exactly where that wound is. What I need to do is, okay, I'm gonna go 2 to 3 inches above that wound and apply the tourniquet. Now, the reason I'm going 2 to 3 inches above that wound is because I'm trying to occlude an artery. Arteries have the propensity to pull back because they're very elastic, okay? And they're gonna retract. So I'm gonna go 2 to 3 inches above that wound, run that tail through the buckle. Again, that first pull, cinch it down, turn my windlass, lock it into my windlass retention strap. I'm not gonna lock it in until I get all the bleeding stopped. Bring any excess over, bring my windlass retention strap over there, look at the time, annotate the time there on my tourniquet. Now, what if in the land of what-ifistan, I've got a wound right here. Well, that 2 to 3 inches involves my knee joint. In that case, I'm gonna go above my knee, typically a couple inches above my knee as well. And that's my deliberate application because I can readily identify it. All tourniquets pretty much work the same way. All the TCCC approved tourniquets, there's 6 of them out there, 5 of them that are pre-hospital use. The ones we use the most in our classes are the CAT and the SOF-T, basically because they've got the most data behind them. Can I get a tourniquet too tight is a question we get asked in class. Yes, you can, but there are some small minor issues, but they're negligible. And the benefits of getting that tourniquet too tight are I'm getting the bleeding stopped versus that minimal risk or the big risk of them bleeding out. If you have any questions for us, shoot us an email to info@darkangelmedical.com. Check our website out, darkangelmedical.com, and we have free online training that talks about all these different tools here. But most importantly, come to one of our classes so that you can be the difference. Y'all stay safe.